Welcome to my American History Notes, where I read conclusions that I've drawn from studying American history, conclusions which you don't have to believe, but you should at least know about the people, the events, the topics, dates, and concepts that I'm talking about. Have your own opinion, study for yourself. And like I say, you don't have to agree with what I'm saying. I don't expect you to. You might even be offended by what I say, but that's all right, as long as you study and you have your own opinion. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to get started here. Andrew Johnson served as president after Lincoln's death, having survived the plot which planned to kill him as well. He did not feel competent to assume the duties of president, he stated, but he was known as a fearless fighter for what he believed in, and as a result, he became involved in the bitterest conflict at government levels this nation has ever seen. The problem he faced during his presidency from 1865 to 1869 was the quote, reconstruction of the former Confederate states. He, like Lincoln, favored a mild reconstruction, turning the state governments over to white citizens with only the main leaders of the Confederacy banned from participation. However, the Republican congressional leaders favored a quote, radical reconstruction, making former black slaves leaders and banning former Confederates from government. The real reason for the Republican support of such an extreme position was as it allowed them to hold on to power in the federal government. Mistakenly thinking Johnson, Lincoln's vice president, to be weak and thinking him hostile to the South, due to his historical antagonism with the Southern aristocracy, they thought to push through many hard and difficult measures designed to punish the South. The idea of putting former black slaves in positions of power over white people, men um, who may have been former slaves, as you can read in Booker T. Washington's book Up from Slavery, that might have had no education or might have not, there was an anathema to Southern whites, to this class of people, this race that they had oppressed, that they had held in slavery. It was a horrible thing for them to think of them having a say in government. We can't imagine that now. I don't think. I hope you can't imagine that now. But it was a very, very much a bitter pill to swallow. Johnson upset everyone by ending the blockade of southern ports and declaring a general amnesty except for officials and high ranking officers of the Confederacy as well as Southern aristocrats. By the time that Congress intervened in December of 1865, the former Confederate states had elected governors, legislatures, and congressmen. The nation was attempting to heal the wounds that rolled around the 600,000 dead of the Civil War. The 13th Amendment abolishing slavery had been approved, but, quote, black codes bound former slaves to the land. It was another type of slavery. The Republicans had no intention of welcoming black Democrats from the former rebel states. Congress passed legislation reinstituting military government throughout the South, and established a powerful Freedmen's Bureau to assist the 4 million freed slaves. Johnson attempted to veto Congress's moves. Johnson went on a national speaking tour to gain support for his beliefs. But radical Republicans, they called them, won in the midterm elections, increasing their majority in Congress. They increased a series of Reconstruction acts in 1867. There were carpetbaggers, immigrant Northerners, and scalawags, called that as renegades, white Southerners who were Republicans, joined forces with freed blacks to seize control of Southern state legislatures. Corruption and waste of public money was common, but this was a tremendous transition. Legislatures convened in total chaos. People people who in this reconstruction, this radical reconstruction they called it. Um, there was a lot of people who, there's a lot of historical narratives that say, oh, they had no concept of order, they weren't educated, they passed laws that they couldn't even read, which is not true. That's propaganda. Okay, so I want to talk next time. I want to talk about some important African American figures of Reconstruction, that will give you some perspective and some context. Um, because if you there's two different strains of history coming from the Civil War. One, the lost cause myth, has Reconstruction as a just a terrible time of tyranny over white people. The other has Reconstruction as a betrayal of African Americans and the promise of freedom that the Civil War supposedly brought. But next, we're going to so it's going to take a couple of times to get through this. But I want to talk about some important black figures of Reconstruction. Um, so just bear with me and we'll get back on this next time.